I'm Henri Blas, the Chief Content Officer at the Global Infrastructure Hub. We're very pleased you could join us in discussing a highly important and interesting and also challenging topic for infrastructure, financing InfraTech for the climate transition. So first, let me start by discussing why it is very important subject. InfraTech is a critical part of the multilateral agenda. In 2020, the G20 finance ministers endorsed the InfraTech agenda, which was supported by the GIA Hub through a stock take and use cases around InfraTech. And that really recognized the important role of technology in achieving better quality infrastructure, attracting private finance, and facilitating recovery from COVID. We then continue to explore this topic in 2021 through various initiatives, such as Infra Challenge, Infra Tracker, and circular economy as well. And they all reference technology as a key enabler to achieving transformative outcomes. If I quote some of the figures from our Infra Tracker, which is a data tool we released earlier this month, that was developed for the G20, and we looked at the government's infrastructure response to COVID. What we've seen is that G20 governments are increasingly focusing on technology and innovation in their stimulus packages and their infrastructure spending in general. It's really meant to facilitate transformative outcome post-COVID, and also, as I'm going to talk about, the transition pathways as well. So if you look at that data, what we realize that around 60%, nearly $2 trillion of the $3.2 trillion of infrastructure as a stimulus was related to achieving low carbon outcomes, circularity, digitalization, and innovation in more general sense. So it's very, very significant. And much of it was underpinned by technology. So that included investments such as energy storage, distribution technologies, hydrogen batteries, etc., EVs, and digital service upgrades in the social infrastructure sector, for example. Just a few, but really there was a key change from some of the packages that we had seen 10 years before after the GFC. What we've seen as well, similarly, is that the international energy agencies and others sort of look at the future and build those scenarios. They will all have identified technology and innovation as critical for any transition pathway. In the world of IEA, the world needs faster scale up of low carbon technologies for clean energy transition. And that really sort of, obviously that will put pressure on budget for government after COVID, after all the sort of COVID packages. So what's really clear around from this body of work by us and by others as well is that InfraTech is a critical component in achieving our long-term goals, especially during those exceptional times after the pandemic. So one of the key barriers that need to be addressed is really finding the financing mechanisms that can support innovation and scaling as well, so that we get the required amount of funding into InfraTech for the climate transition. All that in time and at scale to meet the transition goals that we've seen at COP26, fairly ambitious. So the purpose of today's webinar is to present innovative approaches to mobilizing more financing of InfraTech, especially in the context of the climate transition. And with us today, we're very lucky to have a panel that's comprised of industry leaders on infrastructure financing and technology. And I think you will hear, you can expect to hear a lot of fresh and diverse set of perspective and experience on InfraTech and how to finance it at scale. Next slide. So here you can see the agenda. Today's webinar will showcase the leading work of other key players in the industry and their approach to financing InfraTech. This will include a keynote from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. We're lucky to have Sir Danny Alexander. We then will have a short presentation by my colleague Monica, and then that will be followed by an armchair discussion between Invest India and AIIB. And then we'll have a broader panel with the Inter-American Development Bank, Hydrogenius, ENGIE, and the Center for Digital Build Britain. So we love different expertise, different angles, and all the speakers will talk about the challenges and solution to finance InfraTech, which we hope will inspire all of you. Next time you come across a technology proposition, and we'll give you an idea on how to potentially finance it and tackle some of the risk associated with that. So without further ado, I would like now to introduce Sir Danny Alexander. He's the Vice President for Policy and Strategy at the AIIB.